It is still Thursday, the 17th of August 2023, and I'm continuing to read because it's not a very nice day today and the story is good. It's the story entitled, or the book is entitled Eyes of Horus. It's a farm memory book from Joan Marshal Grants. She died in 1989. This story plays 3,500 years before BC, let's say BC, and she is Ra-Ab-Hotep here, the son of a priestess of Ra. We are now in part 2 of this book, and it's the first chapter, and it's entitled The Voice of Anubis. Father usually took Kias and me with him when he travelled within the Oryx, so I had been several times to the soldiers' village before I went to live there soon after my 13th birthday. It was a tradition for either the nomarch or his son to be the captain of the nome, so I was not surprised when Father told me the time had come to begin my warrior training. Egypt had 3 armies under the direct command of Pharaoh, the royal bodyguard, most of whom were drawn from the 3 royal nomes which divided the north from the south, and the 2 great garrisons. Of these, the one in the north protected Egypt from the Asiatics, and the other below the second cataract was held in readiness to put down rebellions either in the land of gold or southern Nubia. In addition, each nome had its own soldiers maintained by the nomarch and the principal nobles. Their chief duties were to keep order within their own boundaries, but they must go to the aid of Pharaoh if he should call on them to repel invasion. My new cat. Since my grandfather's time, the Oryx could always muster 1,000 fully trained men between the ages of 16 and 30, all of whom knew how to use javelin, mace, and bow, and must have special skills in one of the 3. Their training lasted for 2 years, after which time they went back to their own villages, save for 2 months every year. Only 400 remained permanently at the soldiers' village. These 400 saw that the laws of the nome were upheld, and in addition protected the community from dangers such as floods and marauding animals. They also supervised the building of roads and irrigation channels and collected the tribute of the 10th part. Their families lived with them, and if they wished they could have land of their own to cultivate, though their food and clothing, both for themselves and their dependents, was provided by the nomarch. The men were divided into hundreds. To each of these there was a leader of 100, who was usually a noble by birth, and to 3 leaders of 100 there was a captain, the highest rank except the captain of the nome. Hanuk had been made a captain year before I began my training, and had then returned to Hotep Ra, leaving Sebek, a nephew of Roydon's, in command. I wished that I had been going to train under Hanuk, for ever since he had been so sympathetic about Anilops, I had been able to talk to him about things at which I knew Sebek might laugh. I had known Sebek all my life, but our friendship was of a different quality. He had always been tall for his age and very strong, so he seemed more than 5 years older than me. In spite of this, he had never been too grand to play with Kias, nor did he seem to mind when she was tiresome. When I told her that I was to be trained by him, she said, "If he's ever so horrid to you, tell him I'll bully him if he does it again, and then he'll stop." Kias, do try to understand that I've got to learn how to be a soldier. A soldier can't tell his captain to stop being horrid. He's got to do that, what he's told, without arguing. "You must never do that," said Kias emphatically. "It sometimes happens that you are told to do something you think is a good idea. Then of course you are obedient. But quite often one has to argue or disobey, and sometimes both. It would be a silly kind of army if all the soldiers argued among themselves instead of doing what they were told. Soldiers quite often are silly. I expect it's from having to be obedient so often. Sebek isn't nearly so much fun as he used to be, though I'm fond of him in spite of his being so pompous." She sighed. "Oh, Ra-Ab, I never thought I should want to be a boy, but I do now, for then I could come with you. It's going to be so very lonely without you. Father says I can sit with him in audience and things like that, but half the time he forgets I'm here. Will you be able to come home often? I don't know. It depends on Sebek. From what father says, I'm afraid I shall be away nearly all the time. There are such a lot of things I've got to learn, javelin throwing and wrestling and swinging a mace, which isn't nearly so easy as it looks. And I shall have to learn how to lead men across unfamiliar country on a cloudy night. And lots of really dull things, like how many men are needed to carry the supplies required for a battle after a 5 days journey, and how much a pack donkey can carry, and how much food and water are needed for each hundreds when they can't live on the country. Then there's the men's food and clothes and all the rest of their equipment to learn about, and I shall have to give judgment if they quarrel amongst themselves or their wives get jealous of each other. I should like that part, said Kios. I should be bad at remembering how many arrows to take, or how many mace heads or donkey can carry, but I'm good at sorting out people's quarrels. I suppose there's no chance of father letting me come with you, is there? I'm sure there isn't, I said gloomily. You'll be here being lonely, and I'll be there being more lonely still. We'd learn much quicker if we were together. We always do. We could remind each other of the things we'd forgotten. It's so silly of father to make me stay here without you. I would look nice as a soldier. I tried your new things on this morning, so I know. 3 days later, I was wearing the clothes which Kios had tried on. They were the same as those of a leader of 100, though without the gold amulet. The kilt was striped in white and yellow, like the swing's headdress of stiff linen. We went naked to the waist, except in cold weather. And then we wore cloaks of white wool clasped at the neck by a gold oryx. I was glad that I had inherited father's easy sighting of an arrow, for because of it, the others didn't seem to notice that a mace was still too heavy for me to swing freely, or that I couldn't throw a javelin as far as they did. I soon found it much more difficult to train myself to remember, for we were awakened very early, and a fragile bridge by which sleep memory can join the record of the waking day was broken before more than a fragment had passed over it. I tried to wake before the others, but was usually so tired that even if I succeeded, it was to drowse in the peace of relaxed muscles, reluctant of unnecessary effort. I tried to make myself believe that it was enough for a man to be skilled with arrows. Dreams were for priests, or sometimes perhaps for women. If it were not so, why did I fear the laughter of the others if they knew of my secret ambition? I pictured myself in many roles. My favorite was one in which I led a victorious army against Pharaoh's enemies. When I returned from the final battle of which peace was born, I spoke of ANUBIS to the multitude who acclaimed my leadership, and because I had triumphed in their cause, they believed in mine. I would teach them to see the jackal's tracks clear on the path they must follow, and looking back to the land of the old peace, they would make their future in its image, knowing that only a fool cries pity on the past, while the wise man learns of it. I would say to them, man has not changed, though cities fall to sand and pharaohs are forgotten. The past man is yourself, and your far sons, unborn till the last obelisk is lost. So let ANUBIS teach you of the past, that you may know yourself and judge what course to set on future seas, to lands beyond your dreams. But even imagination seemed to desert me through the monotony of long, hot days. My shoulders and the muscles of my back ached with long effort, while the voice of the master of javelins endlessly repeated the same small pattern of words, which to him were the magic from which came the rhythm of body and space. Spare. Swing your body further round, poise with a hand well back, level with the ear, way on the right foot, now swing back. Now forward in a single movement, body and shoulder and arm must be one with a shaft. Even my thoughts are clumsy. How many javelins have I thrown? 50? 100? And there are always more. It looks so easy when Sebek does it, as though the javelin were as light as a child's throwing stick. The wood on his shaft is rough, and a splinter has broken the blister on my thumb. Each javelin feels twice as heavy as the last. Even the lines which space the throwing ground flicker in the heat. If I were at home, I would be asleep or swimming with Kios. I haven't any home. There's no water to swim in, nor any coolness anywhere. There's only the pain in my hand and sweat tickling down my back, and the voice of the master of javelins who will not say will surely never say, "The practice is finished." Then, just when the day seemed most crowded with dull necessities, eating to stave off hunger, sleeping only because one was too tired to do anything else, I had a dream unlike any I'd had before. I was walking over a long grey field. My mist was rising from the sodden ground, closing in on me like the wings of sorrow. Then, ahead of me, though hidden by the mist, I heard a bird calling, and I thought it was born of the mist. There was no melancholy in its cry, which seemed to promise that it would guide me to the clear air wherein it flew. I hurried forward over the dark, wet earth, through the stubble of corn long harvested. Again I heard the bird call, and beyond it the sound of flowing water. I came to the brink of a cliff, down which led a narrow path cut in the rock. I followed the path. Still the mist clung to me, and the narrow steps were slimy with moisture. The steps grew narrower. Now they were only footholds. The mist swirled aside and showed me a river so far below that if I slipped I must hurtle to my death. I gained the ledge where I could stand firmly, and saw that beyond it the track widened, until again there were steps. The mist closed in again, and with it came the crying of the bird. Now there were words in its cry. "A man may walk down, but only a winged one can fly. There are steps in the rock, but there are wings in the mist. My wings, trust to the mist. And you still so heavy that you need to rock to hold you? Fly to the boat that knows the river. There is no boat to be found by the ways of the steps." I thought, if I follow the steps I shall be safe. Only a bird can fly. Again the voice, "The mist shall be your wings. Believe in my wings, and I will not betray you." I stood poised on the narrow ledge, then stretched out my hands and stepped forward. The mist was buoyant as water. Softly it carried me down, quiet as a bird that glides upon the air. Now I was standing on a rocky beach. A boat waited there, a narrow boat without a sail. The figurehead was familiar. Where had I seen it before? It was ANUBIS of my mother's sanctuary. The steering oar was in the likeness of a feather. It spoke to me, "Give me my name and I will steer you." And I answered, "Your name is the voice of the bird of whose wings you are the feather. Name the brow and I will take you to the far side. It is he whom I follow, the timeless one." Then did the boat tell me that I might enter it. I saw the mist close in upon the cliff by which I had come. Ahead the mist was no longer grey. It was white, as though beyond it the moon had risen. When the boat reached the far side of the river, I saw the light come from neither the sun nor the moon, but lived in everything I saw there, for it was the land without shadows. Even the leaves were loosened with warm silver, and before me stretched an avenue of trees, mighty in stature. I walked far down the avenue and could no longer hear the sound of the river. Under the great trees the light was pale, but ahead of me I saw that it grew brighter. Someone was waiting for me at the end of the avenue, someone whom I had always known and for whom I had always been lonely. I felt her hands cool and narrow within mine, and heard her voice. In it there was an echo of the cry of the bird that had just led me there, but also there was warmth, humanity, laughter. "I have waited for you such a long time. Why did it take you so long to learn to fly?" I came as fast as I could. It was difficult to find the way, the mist was so close, but I followed the bird. "Did you send a bird to bring me here?" "No, but I know the boat had gone to fetch you. They told me someone was crossing the river, and I knew that at last it would be you." "How did you know?" "Because I'm alive, because I dream. My heart told me, and I have learned to listen to the voice of my heart. We mustn't wait here anymore. We must go on. He is waiting for me to take you to him." The trees had vanished, and now we stood together in a flowery meadow which surrounded a temple of soaring columns. She took my hand and led me up the steps of the great entrance. "Where are you taking me? Who is he?" She pulled me by the hand to make me hurry. "Don't you want to see him? You have asked for so long that he would let you come here. This is the first time you've been able to cross the river, but I've been here before many times. The woman who brought me here told me she knew you." "Who is she?" "I don't know. She calls herself Oyabe." "Oyabe is my mother." She looked a little puzzled. I don't think so. The woman I mean is more than only asleep. My mother is dead. Then perhaps she was your mother. I wonder if she remembers. For a moment I was frightened. Are you dead? She laughed. No, like you, I'm only asleep. It's more difficult to get here when you are only asleep. That's why I told you to hurry in case after you've got so far someone wakes you up. We were in a great hall. Though the roof was closed and there were no lamps, it was silver with light, and the soul of the light was perfect serenity. I knew there were words in the light, born of the peace of all great harmony. You have returned to me, Ra-Ab, my son. After many days, you went forth from my house, and now you have found your way again across the river. My daughter has brought you here. She too is a child again, and soon you will see her, for you follow the same path. I heard myself crying out, Anubis, Anubis! Like the blow of a mace, sound shattered my dream. I felt myself being shaken by the shoulder. Sibek stood over me. Wake up, Ra-Ab! Stop shouting for Anubis in your sleep. I hit out at him in a fury of despair. You fool! You blind, ignorant fool! You dragged me back before I found out how to return there. I buried my face in my arms and tried to force myself to remember. But I only heard the voice of Sibek, sharp-edged, though still good-humoured. Stop behaving like a child, Ra-Ab. They're waiting for you down at the practice ground. That was very good, wasn't it? Goodbye.